You cannot do this alone. You have to have community around you. You need community. And so I would just encourage you with that. If you're struggling with something, you're constantly doing that, it's a silent battle that you're battling by yourself. You need to confess that and talk to someone else about it so that you can have someone who will help you to walk out of the darkness into your freedom. I mean, the book of James, it says, confess your sins to one another and pray for one another so that you may be healed. And it says, the effectual, fervent prayer of a righteous man availeth much. And so there's something powerful that happens when we get our secret sins out in the open. We confess it, we get it out, either from the inside, verbally out, or what, and I talk about this in some of my other videos. If you go find the Celebrate Recovery playlist, I did a couple of videos on some of the chapters in the Celebrate Recovery workbook. But I talk a lot about that, and just go check that out, because I think that would really help you too. But I talk about how journaling helped me find freedom too. Getting all of my pain out and into this book, and then I took this book, surrendered the pain to Jesus with this journal, and then I threw it in a fire and I watched all of it burn away. And so I always encourage people to try journaling too. So there's so many tools here that we could learn. And so I just wanted to encourage you with something else. So Jesus, when he was in the Garden of Gethsemane, knowing the suffering that was ahead of him, he prayed. In Matthew 26:39, New King James Version says, "Oh, my Father, if it is possible, let this cup pass from me. Nevertheless, not as I will, but your will be done." And I love this because it also, Hebrews 10:36 says, "For we have need of endurance, so that after you have done the will of God, you may receive the promise." God doesn't always remove your struggle right away. And sometimes, let's say God's delivered you from the addiction part when you cried out to him, like there's no longer this demonic spirit attached to you, compelling you to run to this, but you still have this habitual part of your nature where you've learned to cope in this negative way that you need to learn how to stop doing. And so you're applying those tools, you're learning those tools, but sometimes your life situation isn't changing. Like maybe your family members are chaotic, or you're living in a home where even though you're pursuing the Lord, everyone else around you isn't, and it's constantly chaotic, and it's hard because you feel like you're taking 2 steps forward and then something happens in your life where it pushes you 3 steps back, and you feel like you can just never get there. And so I just wanted to encourage you that going through hard things does create in you endurance, which is a spiritual gift of God, and it's a spiritual quality that is very valuable. You can't learn how to endure unless you go through hard things, And so that's something I've learned in my life, is that even though I go through hard things, I don't have to go through it alone anymore. Whereas before I knew Jesus, I would go through hard things all the time, but I would be on my own and alone, and it was a very hard place. The Bible talks about how a man who stands alone seeks his own desires, and it's not healthy at all for you to try to completely isolate yourself and stay alone in your battle. And you might be thinking, well, no one understands me, all I feel is shame and condemnation, or maybe those church people that they don't get it, or they treat me badly. And I just want to encourage you that you're always going to find people like that in your life that are judgmental or critical, or they're insecure, or they don't know how to help you, or whatever it is.